What's going on, Jerk Faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. But again, we're not having it in the night either. But let's just make believe, like just like the left does. Let's just make believe. Um, yes.
It's nighttime somewhere, Andy.
It's nighttime somewhere. Correct. That is correct. I stand corrected. So let's get it. Let's get this conversation started. Yes, it's your boy Andy. Back with you again for another night of conversation. And Rob's got the same attitude. It's like it's probably 5 o'clock somewhere. So.
Well, that's why I am drinking the high life. So
right, exactly. Yeah,
it's
5 o'clock somewhere. Yeah, so even in this pre-tape, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
In New York, it is.
That's true. It is. Close to it. Yeah, it is. But
hey,
happy hour
in the weather, and the way the weather is today, it kind of feels like we're in New York.
Oh yeah, it's very it is very hot, and it's very muggy, which means moisture, which then means humidity. So it could be 85 right now, but it feels like 95.
That's kind of like, I think that's what the weather forecast is showing right now. It's feels like 97. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah. It's because there's like a high pressure system over the southwest, and in a clockwise fashion, and it's pulling up moisture from the Gulf.
It makes sense.
So yeah, that's where all the lovely humidity is coming from. But I don't know. That's just all wizardry to me. But
right. Yeah, okay. Speaking of, because the Weather Channel is a huge deal. Like, people are rabid over the weather.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's to the point where there's a dedicated channel about weather.
24 hours a day to the
24 hours
weather.
a day. No matter wherever you are, they cover pretty much every. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's global, but they for sure cover the United States.
Yeah, I know. I don't regularly watch the Weather Channel that much, so I couldn't tell you about that. But yeah, I at least know it's national. Actually, it's funny. Speaking of weather, so a lot of times the sports that I enjoy can be affected by bad weather. If it's raining too hard, there's not going to be a baseball game. And outside of certain racetracks, there is no racing in the rain either. And there's a former crew chief. Actually, he got screwed over by a weather forecast. I think back, it was the 1992 Southern 500, which is one of the biggest races of the year, regardless. But at the time, there was a thing in NASCAR where if you won three out of the four biggest races of the year, you were eligible to win $1 million if you could win that third race.
Nice.
And so this particular crew chief was named Larry McReynolds, and he it was the 1992 Southern 500. His driver Davey Allison had won the Daytona 500, and I believe the other big, it was a race at Talladega, and so he was eligible to win $1 million in the Southern 500, and he was dominating the race, leading, and it came down to weather being a potential factor in the race. And so at the time, he had Larry McReynolds had a crew member go down and check the weather radar. And I don't know how sophisticated it was back in 1992. And the guy came back and said, "It's all green. It looks all good. So we should pit." And then, and then he said, "It's like he saw the weather screen, saw it was green, thinking that was good when that means weather clouds. It's like
Right.
it's like, yeah, it's all good. We should pit, and he ended up losing the race because of that. And from that point on, that particular crew chief, Larry McReynolds, he became a huge like weather guy, and like he even, I think, has been on the Weather Channel at various times to like, he's kind of become a amateur meteorologist.
I'd imagine after an episode like that, you'd be obsessed with weather as he is.
Oh yeah,
Particularly missing out on a chance to win $1 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it's one of the great stories from NASCAR history, and yeah, weather.
Although I'm mostly happy because a hope of mine is mostly coming true, and that was I had hoped that we would have a more milder summer than
Last
we
year.
had in the last few years, and one of the things that spurred my hopes was the fact that we stayed here in like Southern California, the Southern California region, we stayed relatively cool longer.
Yeah.
And I was constantly saying like, oh, I hope that translates to mean a milder summer, and I think for the most part that has been true because again because we've had the the cooler weather lasted a lot longer because in prior years like the heat came back like relatively quickly. I mean even going back as early as like late May. We were already starting to feel like temperatures in the 90s, and then by this time, just a few years ago, we were already triple digits. But now, we haven't really been feeling the heat up. It's only like really recently, maybe like mid to late June.
Yeah, so it has been a fairly nice summer,
Mm-hmm.
not too hot. Like, whereas like during the day it's fine. It's only like night where I start to like, it's still like a little too hot for me. I mean, it was 80 degrees when I woke up at 3 a.m. So yeah, but that's because of just kind of that humid air that's just
yeah, that we mentioned before. But yeah, I mean, I'm mostly happy with the weather that we've been getting, even though today is kind of the exception where it's like, it's definitely gonna need it. Even though I took a shower this morning, I'm definitely gonna have to take, maybe like a rinse down midday and even like change out my underwear.
swamp ass.
Yeah, swamp ass. But
It's the worst. I hate it.
it's so disgusting.
And then I keep hearing like those commercials for like Tommy John underwear saying that like it helps, like it's like more breathable somehow.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't know. I might try it out just to see if it actually they live up to that title. Because if it does, dude, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, even though no matter how humid it gets, I would never, I don't think I'd ever go commando.
Hell no. Ugh.
No.
I'm always afraid that it's like you have that like there's something about Mary like where you end up getting your dick caught in the zipper or something. Like it doesn't. Oh, I don't know how people like think that that's like feels good. I don't. It just doesn't.
Right. Yeah, and especially if you're clipped, then it's like you're just killing all feeling in your in your dick.
Seriously.
So yeah, nobody wants that. Anyways, yeah. So Rob, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good actually. Uh, my initial plans for the weekend kind of changed, but that's always, that's fine. Things change, and so what I ended up doing was kind of spent a couple of nights watching movies through with my girlfriend. We did the movie for that we're going to be reviewing today, Wizard of Oz. So that's so I got a lot to say about that. Then we also watched. Well, one thing I like about her is we have a very surprisingly similar taste in movies. She loves like sci-fi and sci-fi movies and all that kind of stuff. But we watched Inception, which I told her, it's like, if you're confused, that's okay. It takes a couple of viewings to kind of get the gist of what's there's a lot of hidden like little things in the movie that you catch as you watch this more and more. You end up like maybe changing your mind about certain things or seeing something new that kind of changes the theory that you have for the film. So she enjoyed that a lot, and then we also watched the original Mission Impossible from '96.
Yeah, I remember watching that as a kid, and I was like, man, this is boring.
Well, see, my first taste into the Mission
Yeah,
Impossible
I know.
was, I think I've
You
said
were,
this before. It's like the absolute
it was the
worst
god
time.
awful Mission Impossible 2.
Which
Yeah.
the thing I think
A movie so bad, Anthony Hopkins couldn't make it better.
no, he couldn't.
He was in the movie and he still couldn't make it. He still didn't make it better.
Tom Cruise couldn't make it better. Anthony Hopkins couldn't make it better. It was, I think that was the only one without Ving Rhames too, right?
I think so.
And they never referenced that movie ever again in the series.
Right? Yeah, they never mentioned Chimera or anything of that sort.
God, it just so. But that's where I started in the Mission Impossible series, and I had never watched the original one up until like 5 years ago, and it's definitely very different from what we have now, because there is definitely more of a action element, where this one is more like a spy thriller type of.
Right, it's very like kind of suspense. It's a mystery. You're figuring the first one. Yeah, it's very much like a mystery. You're in suspense. You're trying to you're figuring things out along with Tom Cruise. But it was just so slow though. It did, it only really ramps up towards the end. I mean, which is I guess fine. And I actually have a new appreciation, because I saw it again, as an adult. And I was like, man, this is a really good movie. I can't believe I crapped on it so much as a kid. But again, I was a child, and so I didn't really appreciate it. And actually, the first one was a slightly more, I guess, of an homage to the TV show.
Yeah, that's what they were going for sure. But I was surprised. I was like, but she loved it. She thought it was like she was on the edge of her seat the entire time. She really liked it. I was kind of surprised. We were trying to watch. I was trying to, because she's never seen any of the Star Wars films, so we were trying to watch the original together, but she couldn't find a copy of it. The only thing that she saw, so there was nothing for Star Wars, and then I was like, well, we can watch Indiana Jones, but the only one that she had available was Crystal Skull. Ugh. I was like, yeah, we're not watching that one. I don't want you to hate the film or to hate the series.
Yeah, it was Crystal Skull was just so bad. I like, it's like you ended it perfectly at after Last Crusade. like perfectly. His relationship with his father has been mended, and then they ride off into the sunset. Perfect conclusion
I,
perfect conclusion.
was it the although I did see an interesting debate when it came to Indiana Jones through one of the YouTube channels that I enjoy, the Cinemassacre channel, and they do movie reviews as well, and they did one which was like, which one's better, Raiders of the Lost Ark or The Last Crusade, which is kind of that's a tough choice. Um, but I thought an even more interesting discussion is, which one's better, Temple of Doom or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? And after listening to them, they make some interesting points. That's not as easy of a choice as you might think.
I don't know. I think like one of the missteps of Temple of Doom is that they went backwards in time.
I didn't mind that quite so much. It just, I don't know if it was like the female lead, if it was the script, or just like the story overall. But
I say they're one of their missteps. It was a misstep to go kind of do a past exploit. But then also, yes, the female lead was just atrocious. We all know that Steven Spielberg only cast her because he wanted to get hit that, and and this the writing was just not up to par.
I heard that that I forget who plays that character, but I heard it was because it was either, I don't know if it was Spielberg or George Lucas that was going through a divorce, so they found the most annoying person they could find for the role as just kind of like, but that also looked like his like ex-wife.
I mean, yeah, I don't know about that.
Like I said, there's all those like different types of stories, like, but yeah, but yeah, it could have been both.
Yeah, it could have been a combination of the two theories. But
But so yeah, well, we ended up not doing that. Not I didn't want to introduce Indiana Jones through the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's just that's
you just don't do that. You just don't.
That's like
do
starting
that.
like at Mission Impossible 2, like I did.
Right. Or starting off Star Wars with the prequels.
Yeah, you can't do that either. You gotta start how like it was, how it originally was. You gotta start out with episode 4.
Yeah, or my modified watching order.
I'm actually, I might do that this year. I might do your viewing order, just to see how that works, because that does seem like a very intriguing.
Yeah, I think because it's because I think it makes the most sense, because you watch New Hope and then you're introduced to Luke and and Han and Leia and Chewie, and then you go into the second one and you have this revelation. It's like Vader. Spoiler alerts, y'all. Vader being Luke's father.
Get out of here.
And it's like. And it was like whoa, how does that even happen? And then you go and you go into the prequels, and again, I always say you can always opt out of Phantom Menace, but Phantom Menace I think has some of the most exciting or the best choreographed saber fights.
By the way, that movie's 20 years old now.
By now, by this year, it's 20 years old. God damn, we're old.
99. Jesus.
Yeesh. But yeah, Phantom Menace has one of the has some of the most spectacular choreographed lightsaber duels in Star Wars.
I would say that's probably the best lightsaber battle scene in the entire series.
Right. The one where Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi go against Darth Maul. And an awesome score too. Duel of the Fates.
Oh,
God,
Duel of Fates. Oh man, that's probably one of my favorite songs in Star Wars too.
Right up there with with the kind of like the title track for the theme
Right.
for Star Wars, and then also the Imperial March. Um, and then of course Attack of the Clones sucks, but it's
Instead of watching Attack of the Clones, you watch the Clone Wars, and then you're good to go.
right. But then that's an investment of time, which not a lot of
Uh,
people have. But
sure,
and I
true.
that's that so I understand. But yeah, you could start at two, and I would recommend it because one is not super important, at least to me, or at least to my reckoning. The first one isn't that important to the overall story of Star Wars. Um, but yeah, so yeah, and then the third, and then after the third, you watch the sixth, and then so you kind of get like the whole backstory about Darth Vader and how he used to be Anakin, and then you see like the final then you see in the Return of the Jedi, you see the story come like full circle.
Yeah. But
So.
yeah, no. So it was. So it's kind of been fun. Like, obviously, I've seen a lot of these movies. Well, outside of the ones that we've done for this month for the movie reviews.
Mhm.
I mean, I've seen Wizard of Oz, but like, I hadn't seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington or Gone with the Wind yet. So I was experiencing them for myself for the first time. But kind of on these like watching these movies, kind of movies I've seen several times, and watching someone experience them for the first time with me,
Mhm.
it's kind of fun,
Mhm.
and that they're enjoying them at the same time. So it's kind of it's been a lot of fun.
Mhm. Cool.
So that was mainly my weekend. Other than that, then I what else did I do? I went to the store, kind of just. I'm actually thinking about doing a was it the that butcher box thing, where you get like the whole thing of meat or whatever.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Because it looks like it's really good meat, and then I think it'll make kind of like doing like lunch and dinner, like meal prep stuff. So like I just like, all right, I already know what I'm gonna have for dinner, and I can kind of eat a little bit healthier, and then it'll make my girlfriend happy that I'm like I have like, hey, I know what I'm eating for dinner, and I'm eating more healthier and on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was your weekend like?
My weekend. It was it was chill. Saturday, I wound up spending time with my cousin and her kids. Um,
I saw your Facebook post about that too.
oh yeah. Um, okay. Well, for those of you, because I don't advertise my Facebook page, but yeah, when I went over to I went over to my cousin's place to hang out, and her daughter, my niece, uh, we started to have a conversation, and one of the questions she asked me was like, "Oh, Uncle Andy, why aren't you married?" To which I replied, not that. Oh, hold on, let me set this up again. So we're having this conversation, and she asks, like, "Are you married?" And I replied, "No." And she continues by saying, like, "Why?" And I said, "I just haven't found anyone I love enough to ask to marry me." She kind of like, "Oh, okay." It's like, "Well, when you do, can I be your flower girl?" And and then at the end of my post, I just put like a little, I put a little tagline on it. It's like, there's always an angle. Um,
Yep.
yeah, no,
I
but it was really sweet. And then her mom told me like why she's kind of on this kick about being a flower girl, and it was because when she was sick and she had the cancer, an opportunity for her to be a flower girl came up, but she wasn't able to because of whatever scheduled treatment, and then which happened across the country in Philadelphia.
Oh,
So
this is your niece that survived like the cancer that she was.
yeah, exactly. And so so she missed her opportunity to be a flower girl at this kind of mutual friend's wedding, or actually twice. Because she was supposed to be the flower girl at two different weddings, but because of cancer, she was robbed of the opportunity.
I
And so,
see.
yeah, and so I guess she looked at me as like her last chance.
Well, how about this? If I get married before you, which is a possibility, then she can be the flower girl at mine. How about that?
Yeah, I'll have to I'll have to talk to my client.
Yeah, yeah. I'll hire her. She's hired.
Yes, all negotiations will go through me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was very it was like it's a very sweet moment.
And now that I know that, it makes it even funnier. Oh my gosh,
Oh.
she got some
Oh.
spunk. I like that.
Huh?
She has spunk. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. But she might actually have including me, she has like maybe like five other chances like within our family, because like there's still
Okay. So
some
that's
people that she could ask to be flower girl to, if they happen to get married within uh, the next 2 years. Although her husband, my cousin's husband, one of his cousins told my niece like, oh, even if you're 20, you can be my flower girl. So I was like, damn it.
yeah. And now she just needs to create a business card, flower girl for hire.
I know, right? Yeah, professional flower girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what a interesting. I don't know why, but I don't know where it stemmed from, but that's a pretty interesting role to have in a wedding ceremony, a flower girl.
I've been meaning to look a lot of that crap up just
Mhm.
because I'm curious because a lot of um and a lot of the whole like wedding planning stuff and how that, because it just feels like it's a sham, all of it. So I kind of want to see like where did all these traditions and things that people do, where did that all start? Um, so I might have to. That's something I might have to do because I'm curious about all that stuff. Like, why am I paying for all this crap? What's the point of it all?
Right.
Because people do like some weird
Well, yeah,
stuff.
a lot of it's more not so much about. Well, I mean, because I guess since we're talking about Western style ceremonies, it isn't necessarily have to do with the religion Christianity, but it's more about like the 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 culture stuff that kind of has seeped into Christianity. Um,
Right.
one of them being like the reason why you have bridesmaids and why you kind of make them dress similar to the bride is to confuse evil spirits. So they're not, so
So
the
they're
evil
pawns
spirit,
essentially.
yeah, doesn't go and uh, I don't know what the opposite of blessing is, but curse.
Curse.
So yeah, curse. So evil spirits can't curse the bride or her marriage.
That's okay. I that's interesting.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, that's one little thing. I don't know what country that's originally from, or
Right.
but I know that yeah, that's the reason why like women have, or supposedly one of the reasons why women have bridesmaids.
And like I said, I'm not against like the symbology and kind of
Right, or tradition, because
the
I
tradition
like
of
traditions.
certain things.
They traditions
They're
are
important,
important to cultures and communities and societies.
but it's just it just feels like there's a lot of times where people are preyed upon. It's like, well, if you want to do this, it's going to be these invitations. Yeah, that's going to be $5,000. I'm only
Or
inviting
you can
10
go the George
people. Like,
Costanza
it's like,
route and get the
yeah,
really cheap ones, and then kill your fiance.
yeah, well, it's because my girlfriend, she does a lot of she does like makeup artistry on the side, and she does a lot of weddings, and she gets paid pretty well to do that. But she's like,
Oh, you should be. She should, because a friend of mine confessed to me recently that his um his wedding was like 20 G's.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
that's not. I am not spending
Well,
that
because
much
like
on a wedding.
because he has like a pretty big family, and his parents, are like kind of pillars within their community, and so like kind of like as an obligation, they have to invite a lot of people.
That okay, well, see, that makes a little bit more sense because
Mm,
of the status that they hold,
yeah.
and it's because then it kind of becomes where it's not for the two of them, it is for the community that's around them. It's
Mm.
an event, kind of like how, like, when the king
Yeah, when the royals get
prince,
married.
the royal stuff, yeah. That's
Yeah.
an event. That's an event for the people, not necessarily
Right.
just for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, for
I have my plan for my wedding too. It's perfect.
what do you have?
My plan is city hall wedding, but live stream it to the reception where I have like everyone that I actually want there. So like I spend more money on the actual party, and whoever,
Well,
yeah,
see,
and then
that's
so people can still be a part of the ceremony. They just won't be there,
makes sense. Interesting.
right?
That's the kind of interesting thought, because I've talked about this with Nicole, and she's like, because she like sees all these big weddings, like, we're not doing this. I
I
was
know,
like,
right?
yeah,
It's like,
I agree.
I
Like,
mean, especially for like the ceremony. I'm just like, yes, I don't need like I don't need like a giant cathedral filled with people to watch me get married. I'll have like my immediate family, and like my bride's immediate family, and then we'll just go to city hall, get married. And then because we live in the 21st century now, we can we'll live stream it, to and then back to the place where we're gonna have the reception, so everyone can kind of watch that and be a part of it still. And
yeah,
then yeah, and then spend all the rest of the money, on the party.
that's actually not a bad idea.
Exactly. All right, for all you single guy, for all you potentially or you engaged gentlemen out there, feel free to use that idea. I highly encourage. I don't care. I don't care if someone else uses it before me. Just it's such a good idea though. Especially in the times that we're living and technology. It's like, why not? Yeah, and I mean, like, it's just like, and if you could do, for family members who can't, who live in a different part of the country, and they can't make they can't make it out or whatever. It's such a good solution.
True, makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And again, I don't. Yeah, for all you engaged people out there, feel free to use this idea. I give it to you freely.
But yeah, um, very interesting idea, Andy. I might have to steal it.
Again, you don't have to steal it from me. Just use it. Anyway, we don't have to. This
We don't
for
have
this
any
episode, we
like
don't
great.
have too many. We don't have stories per se, but one of the things that Robert wanted to talk about was the Simpsons episode that that recently came up. That you watched, right?
Well,
You watched again,
yeah. Well, it's a nearly 30-year-old episode at this
right? Yeah,
point. But
it's from like the earlier seasons. But for some reason it kind of put a thorn in Robert's brain, as it were. And so, yeah, Robert, why don't you get into it?
okay, so the episode it's from season 2, episode 22, called Blood Feud, and the premise of the episode is Mr. Burns, who he is, at least from his own admission, he's in his 80s. And technically they never age, so technically he's in his 80s throughout the. I mean, although they do make fun of him that he actually is older than that, but at least as far as season 2 goes, we know he's in his 80s, and he ends up developing hypohemia, where like he's pretty much like he has a lack of blood in his system, and he's on his deathbed. And since no one likes Mr. Burns, no one really wants to help him out to give him a blood transfusion.
But
Except for
he
Homer.
also has really rare blood type.
Yeah, he has a really rare blood type, which but Homer's like, it's like, you guys, I can't believe you guys. You don't want to cash in on like trying to help out a billionaire. So he's doing it for obviously all the selfish reasons.
Right.
And it turns out that Bart has the right blood type, and so he ends up. Homer's like promising, it's like, don't you know that helping out a rich man, he's going to shower you with riches and all this sort of stuff. So Bart acquiesces and decides to give his blood to Mr. Burns, and when he's giving, he's on his deathbed, and it's like giving his epitaph of, and but then the blood transfusion is happening, and as he's doing it, he gets, he gains more and more strength, and he's like, screw this. He has Smithers throw it away, and he gains like all this like energy and vigor from this. And he's like, he a quote from the episode is, he's saying that it's like, I've tried all these different treatments to prolong my life, and all I needed was a young boy's blood. It's kind of a creepy statement.
Yeah, very
But
macabre.
that
Very macabre.
but that statement got me thinking. Is like, a lot of this stuff is kind of happening today, because that's kind of like a lot of what we have, like all the like the blood spinning and like the stem cell treatments that people are going through, like in various parts of the world. And it, like, I don't know if it actually, this is why, like, if it actually works. I mean, you kind of also had there's a couple of movies that come to mind. There's a shitty movie that was on MST3K called The Clonus Horror, which is essentially The Island, which was with Ewan McGregor, and I think that was Scarlett Johansson that was in that film too, right?
Yeah.
And so, which the people that wrote The Clonus Horror sued The Island for the writers for The Island, because they stole the movie. But it's just,
Really?
it's like old people. Yeah, we'll talk about that at a later time. But
okay.
it's like these old rich people, created these clones of themselves that don't know anything of the outside world other than this island, and they're there essentially for them to steal body parts and blood or whatever else they need to prolong their life, wherever they're at. And there's kind of like a lot of this in like the whole, trying to stay young and fit and to heal injuries and stuff. It kind of reminded me of this whole like stem cell and blood spinning thing that like a lot of athletes and rich people are kind of doing to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. It kind of creeped me out a little bit that, well, The Simpsons once again predicted another thing. Maybe I don't know if it's on purpose or accident, but um, yeah, I don't know. I wanted to get your thoughts kind of like on that too. I don't know if you've seen the episode, um, or like what your thoughts on all this stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, of course I've seen the episode. Yeah, just the implications of this episode now are pretty horrifying. Because it's not, yeah, because even though just switch out blood for anything else, stem cells, baby foreskins, uh, what have you. It's the same thing. Um,
Right.
and it's
Well,
uh,
that's the thing. It's like because I mean, some would like say that it's it's a conspiracy or it was doctored footage, but we have recorded footage of people like selling like the aborted baby parts, and or it's like, oh well, I can get a certain amount of money for this particular part, especially if it's a little bit more developed. Why would I mean, whether it actually does have these properties or not, it's like, why would that be? And it makes me think that it's kind of this, like these magic rhino horn shavings and tiger penises that are uh, concoctions that people were using back in the weird pagan times or pagan religions to create these magic potions for themselves.
mhm. Right. I mean, it's no different from the idea of like the Aztecs eating the eyes of their enemies to gain like new perspective, or or eating the hearts of your enemy to uh,
Gain their
to
strength.
yeah, to bolster their own strength, because the enemy fought so fiercely. So it's like you're gonna try and take their strength and and make it your own. Uh,
Kalima.
yeah, Kalima. Yes, way to tie it back to our initial conversation. Um, but what was I- yeah, and so I guess nowadays we're more concerned about youth and vitality, and extending a portion of our life that that should come and go, just as the seasons come and go and flow in and out of each other. It's like you know uh, we all have a season to be hot. I mean, or at least, or to be more accurate, reproductively fertile. And
Yeah.
that's all what physical attraction is supposed to facilitate is reproduction. And it's just like that's one season of our lives, and the idea that people are trying to extend that part is pretty sad if you think about it. Um, when it's just when there's there just like this world, human beings have a time and a season, and and sometimes and yes, the earth has a more of uh, a cyclical season. Humans have just like kind of a one way deal. um, it's no less beautiful, it's no less important that we just kind of follow the flow.
The well, it kind of also right. I don't know if you've seen this particular episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, but he had that doctor that like I guess he works in Panama now because it's not something that would it's funded in America, like it's not a FDA approved like treatment. But he had this doctor on and Mel Gibson on at the same time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and talking about like kind of like the whole stem cell treatment thing, and because I know Joe Rogan swears by it because he had like he had stem cells like injected into his shoulder that was going to need surgery, and he said it's like yeah I ended up avoiding surgery and not needing it. Mel Gibson swears by it because it essentially brought his dad from the brink of death. And he's still alive today. He's got to be like nearly 100 years old at this point.
Right.
Um, and it's and but then there's also the other cases too where like you hear all like the bad cases of people who are trying to seek out this magical treatment, and then they end up like not only does it not do anything, but it actually does more harm than good to them. So it's kind of is it some sort of just uh, I don't know. I don't even know what to think about it. If it's um, uh, it's one of those things because we've been talking. I feel like we've been talking about like the whole stem cell thing for at least a decade now. It feels like
True. Yeah.
I've been hearing about this stuff for about a decade, and ethically, morally, I don't really know what to think about it, to be
Right.
honest.
Because I think one of the kind of icky bits of it is where do we get the stem cells? Because someone says, because I think that we've been conditioned to think that stem cells are these magical things, and like we just, and they're the cure for what ails you, as it were.
Yeah,
And but we never think about like where do they come from, and they're yes, even adults have stem cells, but it's not produced as abundantly as or available as when you're a child. And stem cells are kind of like the what is it the kind of one size fits all kind of cell when you're born, or when you're still just a baby, and they kind of fill in the gaps, or if you're kind of low on this type of cell, it'll like go and kind of start becoming that cell that's needed, and it kind of fills a function.
well, I
uh,
think what to me, it seems like a lot of people are thinking this is like the Lazarus Pits, like that Ra's al Ghul from the
right,
Batman
from Batman.
series.
Right.
It's
But it's the science isn't as solid as as all that, where it's like, oh, I just stick it into like my shoulder, and it's like it's brand new. But because there are concerns, like what is it, the cancerous growths, because like again, because
right,
it's like there's no way of like really controlling it. So like if there's too much, um, if there's too many stem cells in a particular area, like after like the repair has been done, it can lead into the cells becoming cancerous and then grow, multiplying.
right.
So yeah, the idea of stem cells being this cure all is just, it's just kind of childish thinking. But again, another bone of contention is where do we get the stem cells, and again the highest concentrations of stem cells is when you're a baby, and and which then brings in the subject of abortions. Because
Well,
that's
and
because
I
that's
know
probably where
that's
a good amount of the stem cells are being harvested from the remains of aborted babies.
and I know that this particular doctor that was on the podcast to say, oh, it's used from the like umbilical cord or whatever. So it's it's something that's like cut off, like as obviously because we don't have umbilical cords attached to us anymore,
Right.
obviously. Um, so they're saying that that's what's being used. Well, in this particular doctor, if I remember correctly, was saying is like what the best stem cells to take from. This is where it's best to use from, not necessarily from like some sort of like fetus or arms or what have you. Um, which okay, it's I can even then like if that's really the case, I don't even know like how like how good the science is, or or even how ethical it really is, to be honest.
Right, because the doctor might counter by saying that, oh no, these stem cells are from the umbilical cord, and actually the umbilical cord is the best place to get stem cells. It's like, yes, but once you've aborted the baby, like, isn't the umbilical cord a part of the remains?
Right, and well, it's the and like I'm we might get some backlash. Well, actually, it's guaranteed we'll probably get some backlash on this, but
Mm.
I don't know. It's like I said, I don't necessarily have uh uh a direct case like, oh, this is it's wrong or it's
Right.
unscientific.
You don't have a dog in the fight. You don't have a personal anecdote.
I don't have a defined answer. I don't know what to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
but and like I said, I don't know if it's right or wrong. It just something just seems a little weird. It kind of it feels like the it feels very kind of vampire like, where we're trying to steal like youth back from the young.
Mm-hmm.
um and um yeah, I don't know. And like just this particular episode from The Simpsons, and I mean, obviously, it's just a blood transfusion. It's not quite the same thing, but it just brought to mind like all this stuff that's happening today that is being like discussed.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know, like, because I've seen this episode probably 100 times, and I don't know why it was like this particular last time that I saw it that it just brought all this stuff to mind.
Well, probably because you're kind of seeing almost a parallel, or kind of uh, like a mirror image within that episode, because I mean, when you first mentioned that you wanted to talk about this episode, I was like, I know, I immediately knew, I immediately recognized why you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, and the Simpsons have been fairly accurate in like kind of some of the predictions that they.
Yeah, no, for sure. They've been like prophets,
Yeah, it's kind of scary
predicting the
actually.
things that are happening, like whether it's like the Apple Watch, or Skype, um, or
Uh,
even this blood transfusion thing, to revitalize old people.
Trump
And
becoming
of course,
president.
the biggest thing, President Donald Trump.
The other thing that they had with the with what the hell are those two entertainers with the tiger?
Oh yeah, Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah, thank you, Siegfried and Roy. They got that right.
Hmm.
Although I think we all kind of knew that that was eventually
Yeah,
going to happen.
we all kind of knew they were a little light in their loafers.
All I was saying is like they got the tiger attacked them. That was my not that they were gay, although that's also
Mm.
so yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I don't. I don't know what to really think about that,
Mhm.
other than I think just kind of going with the flow and like, yeah, this is the new miracle treatment. It just feels like this old magic, like the magic fix it formula that,
Mhm.
uh,
I
like I
don't know.
said, this is the rhino horn and tiger dick stuff that people were doing, thousands of years ago.
Mm. Yeah, I mean
That's what it feels
it's.
like to me. But at what expense? It's like
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because now this isn't one to one, but now there's like this whole thing about like vaccines and whether or not children should be forced to or whether or not parents should be compelled by the government to get their children vaccinated when we're not when parents aren't informed on like what are what's in these vaccines and let alone like if they're effective at all. But now but there's been this I think a really strong propaganda campaign saying like, oh, you have to do it, or your child will die, and blah blah blah. And some of the parents' reaction has been kind of troubling as well because people say like, oh, your unvaccinated kid is dangerous to my vaccinated kid. It's like
that's another thing. Yeah, that
yeah, but it's
I'm
like
always
but then that logic doesn't work because like your kid is vaccinated, so how is my kid who's not vaccinated putting your kid who's vaccinated in jeopardy? If your kid's vaccinated against the thing and my kid gets it, then my kid should be the only one in danger, not your kid.
this is also another one of those arguments where like I really don't know. And
Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm not
I've heard very credible arguments from both sides on this.
exactly, and
And
I'm not trying to make. I'm not coming down on either side either because I haven't done enough of the research myself to have a strong argument for or against, but just the argument that I hear that from parents who say like, oh, if you don't get your kid vaccinated, then you're putting my kid in danger. It's like
it feels very
it's like
like it
it's
feels a
like
lot like
telling
spurious thinking.
telling the parent of a kid, let's say it's wintertime and there's snow out, and one parent puts a coat on their kid and another parent doesn't put a coat on their kid, and it's like the parent that put the coat on that kid saying like, oh, because your kid is not wearing a coat is gonna endanger my kid. Like, how? Your kid is wearing a coat, he'll be fine. My kid is not wearing a coat, and so I'll it'll whatever happens to him happens.
Yeah. There's a lot of like there. Then there's the arguments where it feels like a lot of spurious thought, where it's just like, how did you come? How did you? Okay, you've been injected with this, vaccine that we don't know what's in there, but then it's and like okay, then nothing happens to you, so that means like that it worked. But then there are cases where there's some people who don't have certain vaccinations, and then also nothing happens to them. So it's it kind of feels like the whole thing we've been talking about is like is it just some like woo like wizardry that's going on? I don't know. Um, I mean, hell, I remember. Maybe part of it is because we do live in the U.S. where there are some of these diseases are not quite as rampant.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like from when I started doing cross country in high school, I had been vaccinated as like a little kid, but then there was the other stuff that like my mom like never got me vaccinated for, but I
Mm-hmm.
never got sick. It was one of those that like I
Right.
really didn't, but it was for me to compete in a sport at school. I had to go through a physical and get these vaccinations done, and I end up having to get like I think like all of them like at once because I didn't have like there was like 8 of them that I had to get, and it's just, oh my god, it was the worst. I hated it so much.
Mm.
Because I don't like getting shots. And then even like when I was in the Navy, there was other ones that I had to get too.
Mm.
And yeah, like I said, I don't know what to think about that at all.
Mm.
Like I haven't really done the research, but I know like there's a lot of people that think like some of these vaccinations have caused autism in a lot of
Mm.
ways, or at least have ramped it up quite a bit.
Right.
And like I said, we really don't know what causes it
Mm.
either.
Right.
So
And it's like it could be anything. It could be a lack of of playing outdoors. Playing in the mud. Lack of exposure. You know. Because
yeah,
like
we really
because like
don't.
now even doctors are saying like when your child eats their boogers, let them, because that's like a safe way of exposing them to like germs that they can eventually develop an immunity to.
And a lot of that, I don't know, it feels like very anecdotal evidence too. Because I'm in the belief that we kind of treat each other as like, oh, we're just this like unified body that like everyone's kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, like our bodies are all kind of unique in a certain way. Because I think like there's certain people who they have different metabolism levels. They certain foods, like they react differently to certain foods. They certain diets work better than other times. Like and
Right. Yeah. So there, yeah,
uh,
there's no typical reaction.
right, and I think of back in history is uh, Theodore Roosevelt, who had all sorts of ailments as a kid. Like he had asthma, and he was kind of a sickly little kid that like had, but his I think like his family like kind of forced him. It's like they kind of forced him to do outdoorsy type stuff to kind of force him to overcome all these things. And um, you could say it's like, well, it was just kind of like sheer willpower that helped him to overcome a lot of and at least that's what it seems like from all the stories that I've read about him.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like he just kind of forced himself to overcome these frailties that he had, and
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of a wild man in a lot of in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and I don't know, maybe there is a certain aspect of that where yeah, you have all these we do live in an age where like, oh, you got a little scrape on your knee, well, don't go outside anymore.
Mm-hmm.
um or like, oh, you're kind of sick, so like not even like, because there's a difference between like really sick, because when I get sick, like I'm out, like I can't do anything, like I feel terrible, like I
Mm-hmm.
literally can't lift like my arms and get out of bed. That's how bad it is. But then it's like there are some kids where like they'll sneeze and it's like, oh well, stay home. And I don't know if like the body develops like a weakness, like, oh well, okay, I'm sick, so time to just
Yeah.
like I had to just stay home. And
Yeah. I never had
instead of,
that problem because my mother was crazy.
oh yeah, well same here, because
Yeah.
like are you
I
like
mean, yeah, I
my
told you
mom.
that story, right, about when I was. Oh, this is back when I was in high school, but I told you that story, right?
No, I don't think so.
Well, yeah, I was like, it was in high school, and I was sick, and I had and then I'd overslept, and so like the school had already started, and then so I went to go inform my mother, who worked, I went to go tell my mom, like, hey mom, I'm late already, um, and I'm feeling sick, so I think I'm gonna stay home. And the first words out of her mouth were, "What about perfect attendance?"
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, because up until that point, yes, I would have had perfect attendance in high school.
I remember my mom is like, when I would say like, if I was sick, it's like, are you dead? No. It's like, all right, well, you're going to school. It's kind of the only time like it was like a complete shock to me. It was like my senior year, and she's like, I remember she ended up telling me like, she's like, "Oh, do you have like a lot going on at school today?" I was like, "No, not really. Like, I don't. We don't have any like like no projects need to be turned in, no tests." It's like, if you want to stay home, you can stay home. I was like, "What? Like, all
Like,
these
that's an
years?"
option?
Yeah, I was like, all these years, and like you're telling me like I can stay home? What the hell's wrong with you?
Man,
It's like, yeah, like
if my mom told me I could stay home from school, I would have plotted.
I literally I almost died. I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like, well, it's your senior year. Nobody gives a shit about senior year. It's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this is also the time after like I had enlisted in the Navy too. So she's like, "Yeah, you're not going to college. Who gives a
I know. So yeah, he's like, you're not trying to impress some dean, so fuck it.
My mom is a wild woman because she was a stay at home mom until after I left high school.
Mm.
So it's yeah, I couldn't really like slip anything past her.
Not me. I was a latchkey kid, but still, my mom was like all about me going to school. Even when I said like, oh, I'm not gonna go to I'm not going to a 4-year university right out of high school. Not with my grades. And not that I was doing really bad. It's I just wasn't doing my best.
You
Because
weren't the typical Asian. Yeah.
no, I wasn't. I was a slacker Asian. And it wasn't until I got older that I found some brains.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah. Uh,
That's why we're friends now.
that's why our friends now. All right. I think we
Yeah,
should get into
there's really no satisfying conclusion to my discussion on the episode of the Blood Feud
yeah.
because like I said, I really don't know what to think. And I've heard interesting discussions on both sides of the aisle on this.
Mm-hmm. Same
Um,
here.
yeah, it's maybe I don't know if it's just like my insecurities or like just like my belief system, but it does kind of like it weirds me out just a little bit. I don't know if you feel the same way. Um, it just feels I don't know if this is like some new kind of treatment that's on its way that it seems a little weird because who would have thought that like to treat certain diseases you'd have to kind of use the disease in the treatment.
Right.
100
Yeah,
years
because
ago.
they're used. Yeah, because what a lot of the vaccines that are developed for diseases is they use a dead part of that disease of that organism in the vaccine, which then triggers your body to have an immune response. Uh,
Right.
so then it develops antibodies against that specific, and that's why flu shots are bullshit because there's so many variations on the flu virus that getting vaccinated for one flu doesn't necessarily mean you're vaccinated against all the flus.
Oh yeah, I stopped getting the flu shot just because like what's the point? Because it's only like I heard it's like a 1 in like 6 or 7 shot that you get the right strain.
Right.
And every time I get the flu shot, I end up like I'm deathly ill. Like I'm out for the
Right. Because
count.
technically you're exposing yourself to the virus, and so yeah, of course, like so your body already has like that defense or has that reaation,
Yeah.
but it
out of all
doesn't
like
mean
the
like you know it's like that old gag where if if you're kept out of some place and they have a picture of you and then you just roll up with the glasses, the schnoz, and the mustache as the disguise, and then the balance or like the doorman or whatever like looks at the picture, looks at you with your disguise, like, oh, you're fine, and just like lets you in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started just giving a giant middle finger to the flu shot. It's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna get if I get this, it's 1,000% guaranteed that I'm gonna get sick. Which because every flu shot I've had, I'm done. I'm out. Like I have the flu. But if I don't get it, I'm fine. So it's like I said, you know what? Fuck the flu shot. I don't need it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not
every
gonna get
flu
it.
season, I never get the flu shot, and I always end up being fine.
Since I've stopped getting the flu shot, I've had the flu once in the last like decade. Once.
Yeah, and I can't even remember the last time I had the flu.
And it was a very mild flu. Like I was back on my feet. Like it took like 2 days.
Hmm. Yeah. So we don't have an opinion either way. We still got to do the research. Do not take our word as gospel because we have
Right.
no opinion on
And
this
I would
matter.
be I'd be interested to hear what people have to say about like their own thoughts concerning this.
Right, for and
Um,
against. I want to hear it. I
yeah,
want to hear
I
what
want to
people
hear
have
it.
to
I
say.
want to hear it all. Don't like fight with each other, but it kind of share your thoughts on that. There's maybe something we missed or that we don't know. Yeah, love to hear it.
Indeed.
We're just two dummies on this subject, so.
Yeah, admittedly so. All right. All right. Let's get into our review and wrap this baby up.
All right. So we got another 1939 classic. Let's Andy, can you pull up the awards that it was nominated for in 1939? We're doing Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
So and one of my thoughts on this film is like because this was not the first color film ever,
Mm-hmm.
but I guarantee that this may have been the first color film that somebody did see in 1939. Um, and I would have loved to have been alive at that time to kind of like and be at the theater to see that. It's almost like the wow, I would have to the reaction of the crowd in
Hmm.
the theater. I think would have been pretty fascinating. Don't you think, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, even with like, because Gone with the Wind was the whole thing was in color, and there was a few other movies that were in color at that time. Not and even the some of the Walt Disney like cartoon films were in color as well. Um, but like I said, I think especially at that time with uh, and probably even with the first talkie film like where they actually had sound, that must have been something spectacular to behold as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm trying to find a. Okay.
You got the list of awards that it was nominated for.
Not so much a list, but a description.
Well, that'll work.
Uh, yeah, why don't you go into while I'm looking? Wait, hold
So
on.
here's the review
Okay,
of the
hold
film.
on.
Oh,
I found it. All
okay.
right. Yes. Nominated: Best Picture, Best Art Direction, Best Effects, Special Effects. Not those were the what they were. Oh wait. Oh, and also nominated for Best Music, Original Score, Best Music, Original Song. Nominate. They were yeah. What they won was best music, original score, and best music, original song.
That makes
Um,
sense.
and then actually, Judy Garland won an honorary award uh, for best performance by a juvenile. She was 16 or 17 years old at the time.
Yeah, she was very young in this film.
Yeah. So she was awarded an honorary Academy Award, Academy Juvenile Award.
Interesting. I didn't know. Because Gone with the Wind was the one that won Best Picture that year, correct?
Yes, Gone with the Wind won, yeah, for Best Picture.
Okay. So, The Wizard of Oz. It starts off in a it's a black and white, although it is a sepia toned version of
Ooh, you
that.
know about sepia tone,
And well, I mean it is.
huh?
And you have you have the main character is Dorothy. Dorothy Gale is her full name, and she lives on this farm in Kansas and is essentially. I don't know really how to describe it. She's completely ignored by essentially everyone that's on that farm. That's like her family. We don't know anything about her parents because they're not there. It's her aunt and uncle, and like the farm hands. But the troubles that she's trying to convey that she's because apparently her dog bit one of the other neighbors, and she's trying to convey like that this neighbor is going to come and cause problems, but nobody listens to Dorothy, and uh, it turns out the neighbor comes and uh, which God, I can't remember the neighbor's name. Andy will come up with the names. He has all that stuff pulled up, but she ends up like wanting to like take Toto away from Dorothy for kind of he's a bad dog like and all this stuff, and um, Toto's kind of a smart dog and ends up coming back to Dorothy, and since Dorothy is not being listened to, and she wants to protect her dog, she ends up running away, and okay, and from there on, there's in the sky, we notice that it is a very cloudy, kind of dreary day. And then after Dorothy runs away, there's kind of the wind starts to pick up, and it actually turns out that there's a tornado on the way. And everyone escapes to the cellar, and Dorothy is like, "Oh, I need to go back," and she realizes that she sees a tornado, runs back to the house, tries to get into the cellar, and is looking for everybody. Can't quite, the cellar's locked, so she can't get in there. So she runs into the house, and the twister kind of knocks something like the window or the windowsill, like kind of slaps her in the head, and she ends up, going unconscious on her bed, and the I'm assuming that all of this is a dream sequence, the whole bit,
Mm-hmm.
and she ends up like she's in the house and it's going through the twister and she sees like all these odd characters and things going on, and the house lands, and when she opens the door, a world of color is opened up to her, and it's the land of Oz. It's this foreign place. The I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Is kind of is one of the famous
Yeah, it's
lines.
got iconic lines.
Yeah. So and that's kind of the basic premise of the film is that she's discovering where she's at, and trying her whole goal is to get home, and she doesn't know necessarily how to do that, but the adventure of the film and everything is for her to try to get home.
Hmm. Right.
You gotta. It's what are some of your thoughts on the movie, Andy?
Yeah. I forgot how good this movie was. And I think, well, because of popular media too, like a lot of the scenes were kind of missing in my mind because I totally forgot that like her cousins or like the farm hands were
Right.
present. Were present at the very beginning of the movie. I just kind of remember them being there at the end. And then so I didn't have so there wasn't I forgot the context of why those three guys were in her in her dream as
As the
the
lion, the scarecrow, and
scarecrow,
the Tin Man.
the Tin Man, and the lion.
Well, yeah, and I'm with you because I don't remember I didn't remember the beginning and the very end of the film, which was all like kind of in that sepia tone, black and white.
Right.
I for whatever reason I don't know if I never watched those parts, but I don't remember them at all.
Mm-hmm.
The only things I remember are the actual like the color sequences.
I see. Yeah. Um, but yeah, really good. And and just reading real quickly that Judy Garland won that special juvenile award from the Academy. Is like, yeah, that's really merited because she did a really good job, just performance wise, and and also reading that it won like best song, the song "Somewhere Over the Rainbow."
Yeah. Oh, she has a beautiful voice.
Yeah, spectacular. Just
You know that's Liza Minnelli's mom.
oh, that's right. Holy shit!
Yeah, I was
Wow.
like, I looked that up. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me! I did not know
I
that.
know. Damn. No wonder. No wonder. I don't know what. I don't. Tell me if you get this sense too. But no wonder it feels like Liza Minnelli feels like she's trying so hard.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's exactly why she's trying that. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
She's trying to live up to
Because
this
yeah, I was just thinking
mom.
about it's like something about Liza Minnelli. It feels like she's trying really, really hard to be good at like singing or performing. And it's like it's just, and then it's like and then you reminded me of how that her mom is Judy Garland. I was like, holy shit! No wonder no wonder it seemed like she
And
was
Liza
trying
Minnelli's not.
so hard.
And Liza Minnelli's not completely terrible, but
Right.
but what she has, it's like Judy Garland's like way up here,
Uh
and like
huh.
Liza Minnelli's like here. It's
Yeah.
not bad, but like not
Right.
here. You
Yeah. Not Judy Garland level.
know?
So wow. Yeah. So no. Yeah. Okay. So now. Okay. Now. Like now. Kind of like.
The
The
pieces are coming
mannerisms
together.
and like the choices she makes or Liza Minnelli makes in her performances totally makes sense now.
And a lot of the craziness of Liza Minnelli, it kind of like because Judy Garland kind of went a little off the rails, especially
Yeah.
towards the end of her career. So yeah, kind of like, and that was about the time that Liza Minnelli was born. So it makes it's kind
Wait,
of makes sense.
did Julie Garland have like dementia or something?
Well, I don't know if it was dementia, but she was I know she was a pill popper like later in life.
Right.
So I don't know if she did have dementia, it was probably caused by that.
Mm. Yeah, but her performance was amazing. Just so just a great performance by Judy Garland. I honestly can't believe like that I ever slept on this movie.
Right. Now,
I was
and
just
I'm going
like,
to say this because I hate musicals. I think musicals are terrible.
uh,
This is one that's done. This is great. This is
right.
a good musical.
Mm-hmm.
because it's catchy, it's fun,
Mm-hmm.
it's it has a lot of depth to it.
Right. I mean, yeah. It's not like it's not in. It's you could. I think it could be argued that it is an action movie. Um, but it's just it's just like the resolutions aren't your typical action movie resolutions.
Right,
Where like the hero goes out and in force um, resolves issue resolve things like with through violence. Whereas in the Wizard of Oz, you know, um, even though two of the witches are ended with their deaths, it isn't necessarily Dorothy's actions that or her intentions weren't um,
to cause that.
to cause the death, right? Because like the opening scene where where she's found in like the Munchkin village, and she's killed the Wicked Witch of the East. It's like it wasn't her intention. She was just in the house, and then she happens to um, kill the witch, or the Wicked Witch of the West, where Scarecrow was on fire, and she was just trying to put out the fire, and she throws the water, and the Wicked Witch of the West happened to be in the way, and ends up killing her.
Right, and how is she gonna know that? It's
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. Yeah. So again, it's kind. So you can. I think there's an argument there uh, for categorizing the Wizard of Oz as somewhat of an action film, but
yeah,
just not your typical kind of action film.
yeah. There's a lot of like I like this movie. It's a great movie. A lot of has a lot of like all the referential like parodies that come along after this film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how to categorize or really think about this movie because, like you said, yeah, it does have action elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting adventure tale. It's a musical. It's all these things kind of wrapped into one. And then even then, it's like and that's just the you kind of like the middle kind of part of the movie because it is kind of bookended by these real scenes of her real life, not
Mm-hmm.
the her time in Oz.
Right.
And
And
we
then
don't
yeah,
know
it's like
is that a dream? Was it real?
right.
Uh,
It's almost like the original Inception.
yeah, exactly. We just don't know.
Yeah, we just
It
don't
could have
know
been
because everything was drawn from like her experience. Like the Wicked Witch of the West was obviously that
that
the
old
late yeah, that old lady on the bicycle, and like the trio was obviously her friends, and like
the
the
farmhand.
farmhands, and then the wizard was obviously that that traveling performer.
The only ones I don't think that we see are her aunt and uncle.
Mm-hmm. Or yeah, even though like the actors who portray you know Auntie Em and Uncle Henry aren't there, but I think Glinda the Good Witch is kind of like a stand-in for them, because cause she's the one that's always like looking out for Dorothy on her journey.
That's a possibility, but because in the other cases, it's those same actors that are playing those
Exactly,
parts,
exactly.
except in the case of uh, her aunt and uncle. Like they're
Mm.
just and yeah, Glinda could be playing kind of like an amalgamation of both of them, like
Yeah,
in her
it's yeah. Like
character.
Glinda is like kind of like the stand-in for the aunt and uncle who are kind of paternal characters, uh, or paternal figures to Dorothy, and and her watching out over Dorothy throughout her journey to Oz. Um,
Right.
could be kind of like an analogy of like the parental protection that her aunt and uncle have for her.
Um, and like I was saying, is I would have loved to have been there in '39 to see someone who hadn't seen any like color, as far as like in
Right.
film,
I mean, because
obviously, because
even
obviously,
because color
contrary to
film
popular
was a
opinion,
thing. I mean, color
yeah,
film was a thing back then. It was super expensive.
yeah. But I was
And
saying, contrary to
so,
popular opinion, people didn't live in black and white back then. Like, they actually saw it in
yeah.
color. Yeah, but
Right. Yeah. People. Yeah. It's
to,
just you see old reels. Of life back then and everything's in black and white. It wasn't all of a sudden color came into. It wasn't like what's that one what's that one movie with Tobey Maguire?
oh shit,
Pleasantville.
yeah,
It wasn't like Pleasantville where we're,
yeah,
we're all like black and white and all of a sudden we're like discovering the color within ourselves.
right.
Um,
Um, but no, but see like film, there was people that had probably saw it. This was the first film that they saw where they actually saw color in film. That must have been just a wide-eyed experience, like an odd
right.
moment.
I
It's like,
mean, yeah.
damn.
It could be it could have been akin to the first time people started to watch things in HD.
Yeah, I think this would be like kind of more of a shock moment, but yeah, you're right. HD, you look back and like you go from standard definition to HD. It's ooh boy,
It's
that's
night. It's
a
night and day. It's night and day.
goddamn. It's nice.
I still remember. I forget what company it was, but they had this commercial. Advertising for their HD TVs, and it was a
Yeah,
baseball game, and the pitcher throws a strike, and then like you hear the announcers like, man, there's something nasty on that ball, and then they showed the same play in HD, and you see the pitcher like sanding down the ball, and then he throws it, and it's still a strike, and it's like, oh, like what you miss when you don't watch an HD.
yeah. They had the same type of commercials for NASCAR too, where it's like, uh, and yeah, going back and like I watch like old races,
Mhm.
and then I've seen some of like kind of when I'll watch like a newer race, and it's like, god damn, it's like it looks so good. Yeah. But yeah, this movie's like really it's interesting. I like it a lot.
Mhm.
It had a lot of cultural impact. It spawned, there's the musical Wicked,
Right.
because the this whole story of the Wizard of Oz, um, this is a this is a whole series of
Right. Yeah.
stories by Frank Baum that
Mhm.
we kind of only think that this is like a one part of it, and we're given certain parts of the lore of the land of Oz,
Mhm.
but the reality is like there's a whole lot more that we're missing, and obviously like plays like Wicked
Right. Yeah. They kind of
kind of
fill it in,
add
and
on to it.
also the kind of the prequel, Oz the Great and Powerful that they did a while
That's
back.
right. And, yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's how Oz came to
Yeah. The story
the
that yeah.
Wizard came to Oz.
Right. The story that the wizard tells to Dorothy. Is that's kind of the jumping off point for when they did the prequel Oz the Great and Powerful.
I had forgotten about that movie. I might have to go and watch that.
Mm.
I'm kind of curious.
Mm.
Um, the other thing that I think we should maybe touch on slightly
Mhm.
is uh, the with Frank Baum. Obviously, the whole story, the whole story of Oz and all the lore had a very it was his way of criticizing the idea of the Federal Reserve, or that
Mm.
whole idea.
Mhm.
Um,
Actually,
at,
yeah, because in the original story, what is it? Dorothy slippers weren't ruby slippers; they were silver
they were
slippers.
silver. You're right,
You know,
and you're
obviously
on the gold.
commenting on the silver standard.
Right, and obviously for this, like some people say, oh well, it's obviously like they were trying to change her shoes to change like the tail. I don't know if that was the case. I think it was more because Technicolor was so new at that time. They wanted to put colors in that were going to really pop on the screen, and
Right.
red pops more than silver does.
Hmm.
Um, and goddamn, those slippers or those shoes really popped on the screen. Let me tell you.
Hmm.
Um, I think
Absolutely.
I feel like they have those on display somewhere, or they were trying to sell. I remember they were auctioning off those ruby red slippers from the movie.
Really?
I forgot what. Yeah, I don't know if they're on display somewhere or they were being auctioned off, but like yeah, that was a,
I would think that they'd be in the Smithsonian or something.
or maybe that's what it is. Maybe they are on display, but yeah, it's like those
Mm.
are, that's an important part of history, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
um,
sense. That they make that change to it.
but yeah, it's kind of but I think a lot of that whole idea that Frank Baum was talking about was, I don't know if this necessarily, like this film kind of killed that whole idea, because there's really nothing that it kind of brings to, if you're not really thinking about it, there's nothing that would really bring to mind all of that.
Mm.
um, but I guess if you really do kind of like look at the history and like what was going on, it does bring a little bit more sense to like what the whole, everything that's going on in the movie and in the story. But yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a, I don't know if like I don't know if that was like their goal to kind of like kind of smother Frank Baum's actual message from his story.
Right.
Um, but it definitely, like, for better or for worse, I think it kind of does, regardless whether they were doing it on purpose or not, because
Hmm.
no one really talks about Frank Baum whatsoever.
Right. I mean, yeah, and people don't know, people don't know that that this is actually part of a series of stories.
Oh yeah, there's like there, and they did come out with other films, in the years after this, which were
Hmm.
not like the huge theatrical releases
Right.
like this one was.
Hmm.
They were kind of crappy, lesser quality films.
Right. Like, yeah. What was it like? Dorothy Returns to Oz, I believe, was one of them.
Yeah, and they're fucking creepy. Let me tell you, they're really, you watch Wizard of Oz and you watch these, it's way different. There's no musicals. There's none of that shit.
Yeah.
Like
There's no.
it's
Yeah. There's none of that shine on it
no. It
that the Wizard of Oz had. Um,
there's no man behind the curtain. It's just it's sheer. It's weird.
yeah. It's dark.
Um. Yeah. But yeah, I it's this movie's great. I found myself like humming along to the songs. Like, oh, it felt like I was kind of putting on an old blanket that I hadn't used in a while,
Hmm.
and it just remembering all those songs and kind of the I think appreciating, because this is the first time I've seen it as an adult,
Hmm.
and just appreciating the great acting from all the characters, because
Hmm.
it's, being in a musical is not easy. Like you have to, not only do you have to act, but you have to be able to sing as
Right.
well.
Yeah, you have to be a real talent. I mean, like the actors and like all the actors of of the trio, great performances. The Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion is fantastic. I mean, it's gone to the, it's like, if you do like the kind of like the Cowardly Lion kind of like put 'em up, you obviously
Yeah,
automatically know what you're referencing.
right. And there's all these like iconic things that you referenced back to from the film, and like, I'm off to see the wizard. We all know what that. It's we all know what that means. It's like, we're off
Right.
to see like
Yeah,
some
I
kind of.
mean, and then and then Matrix, they referenced, the whole like, oh, the Kansas line, where
Right.
Neo is about to be freed from the Matrix, and one of the other characters like, say goodbye, it's like, get ready, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye bye. Obviously a play off of,
Yeah.
off of
Right.
the, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. So.
uh Shoot, what was I gonna say? No, there. Shoot, no, I forgot what I had something in my head that I was gonna say, but like I said, yeah, there's all this like referential stuff that we all kind of like. It just brings back to mind Wizard of Oz, and yeah, all the actors were really fantastic in the film. All of them could sing. I wasn't. There were quite a number of issues I know with filming in this. The the lady that played the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah, Margaret
She
Hamilton.
actually, yes, yeah, she because there was a few of the fire like sequences where
Mm-hmm.
there was one, I think it was the one where she first showed up after Dorothy landed,
Mm-hmm.
because there was supposed to be like a where she comes up with smoke or disappears in the smoke, like there was
Mm-hmm.
a um, like a secret door that she was descending in,
Right.
and
Or like it
and
went
the
off too
fire.
soon.
Yeah, and because of like the makeup she was wearing, it like it burned her. She had like third-degree burns on her face and her hands. The Tin Man that we see is actually not the original Tin Man.
Mm-hmm.
The makeup that was used made that guy, the original Tin Man, so sick that like he couldn't do the film, so they ended up having to redo all of the Tin Man sequences. They had to refilm it with the
Uh-huh.
new Tin Man. Um, and I think that, and there was also like production and directional changes because the
Mm-hmm.
guy that was initially directing this film ended up having to move over to do Gone with the Wind to fix the issues on that film, and so he had to move. So they had to change the director towards the end of filming for Wizard of Oz. So that was a lot of a lot of moving pieces, a lot of like issues.
Uh-huh.
Yet it still came out to this masterpiece. That's pretty amazing.
Huh.
And not only was it like this movie a masterpiece, but the guy that moved over to do Gone with the Wind made that into a masterpiece. And that won Best Picture.
True.
So I think not only this film, but like all the films we've seen. So this has been a masterpiece year for film. There's
Mm.
so many like great stuff that we've seen, and um, I just think like this one especially, with all the issues that it has, that it
Mm-hmm.
had during filming, and like trying to get this movie made.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that not only did it get made, but it's an all-time
Yeah, it was
classic
a
that.
hit.
Now in '39, it wasn't as huge of a box office success,
Mm-hmm.
but through like they ended up replaying it, re-releasing it in theaters a few years later, and it really kind of came
Took
on,
off,
and
yeah.
yeah, and it definitely developed that success and that legendary status later, many years down the
Mm-hmm.
road. So I see why it didn't win Best Picture, but the fact that it's lasted the test of time, so
Right.
it's I don't know, it's quite fascinating. The behind the scenes stories, concerning the film. The film itself is great. I like it a lot.
Mm.
And then
Yeah,
you
I
have the
was.
whole like Frank Baum like tale behind that too. It's so pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I was. Yeah, I was kind of smirking to myself because when you told me that they swapped out directors, it just kind of reminded me there really is nothing new under the sun because kind of modern equivalent of that would kind of be I think would be the Justice League movie.
Oh God.
For like a big kind of like studio blockbuster. Initially it was Zack Snyder who was on who was directing, and because of a personal tragedy, he had to step down, and they got Josh Whedon to come on board and do some like reshoots and like rework some of the dialogue. Um, but
Right.
but it was not the Richard Ford. Let's just put it that way.
It clearly that movie clearly showed that it wasn't the same vision throughout.
Yeah. Just yeah.
It felt like two people were
Tonally,
directing
it
it.
was like all over the place, and Josh Whedon, he can't fix everything.
No, I mean, and I do like Joss Whedon a lot, but yeah, it just that movie. Well, Zack Snyder he's a cancer on pretty much everything he touches. So he's the worst. I don't want to get into that, but yeah. But the
I mean,
fact that like
the only work that the only works I really appreciate from Zack Snyder, is 300 and Watchmen.
that's right, he did do 300. That's a great movie. Yeah, I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
Only because I think he's a really good like. I think he should be like a DP or something. He should never direct. He shouldn't be the guy in the
Yeah,
chair. But like, yeah, the way he's able to translate, specifically comic book stuff or graphic novels, um, the look of how it was drawn, and then putting translating it into film and like 3D. I think he's a master.
true. Yeah, he's definitely pretty good at that.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, he should be a director of photography, uh, director of cinema, but he or cinematography, but he should not be like just the guy in the chair.
Yeah, that's 100% true. The but yeah, no, the fact that like yeah, it had like different producers and directors for Wizard of Oz, and the fact that it turned out like that is
Mm-hmm.
pretty damn magical.
Mm-hmm.
It's like um,
Yeah, it's a miracle. Like, it's like who knows? Like, if one thing just went slightly off, and I think you can see that. Uh, what is it? That all the people working on it, they kind of understood what the vision was. And
right.
they worked their damnedest to make sure that it was consistent, and like even like when you told me about like that the Tin Man wasn't the original Tin Man. I didn't know that, and but even knowing that, it didn't like change like when they went back to reshoot, it didn't change like the feel of the movie at all.
No, it didn't. And the guy that they got to replace him was pretty damn good. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like the costume design and everything. I was just marveling at like the Tin Man's legs. I was like, man, those are amazing. The design and like the prop and like the functionality. Now he still had like range of motion, and yet he's supposed to be like a stiff kind of character.
yeah, it was pretty remarkable. That costume on the Tin Man alone is pretty damn remarkable.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And even like the Scarecrow, like how he moved too. It's like that I felt like he was a Scarecrow the way that like he could move his body. Like
Right? Yeah,
had to be
he
like
felt like
double
he had
jointed or
no
something.
internal structure.
Yeah, like that guy had to be like double jointed or something because the way that he moved was just weird.
Yeah, it's just very uncanny. It's like that's a real person.
Yeah,
Like that's just a person like with some in a costume and fancy makeup. Really? He's not an actual scarecrow.
yeah. it's it's pretty remarkable.
Mm.
What even back in '39, like what they
Yeah,
could
what they're
do. I
able
mean,
to accomplish.
the set design was beautiful too.
Mm-hmm.
That was back like when they actually created actual sets. It wasn't green screen stuff. So
Right. Mm-hmm.
god damn, those sets were beautiful. So
I have to wait, really quickly. I have to remark though, like how that scene where the Wicked Witch was trying to slow them down, and she used poppy flowers. I found that to be pretty interesting.
yeah, well that go. I think that go. I don't know if this was in Frank Baum's book too.
Mm-hmm.
If like that was kind of something similar that she did in the book. I haven't read his book, so I couldn't say. But yeah, that's kind of a very interesting distraction, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
because we all know what poppy flowers are used for.
Yeah.
It's
Or at least
they
the seeds.
right. It's either you can make delicious food out of them, or you could
Or
create
yeah, lovely like
heroin
delicious
essentially.
bagels, delicious
Yeah,
bagels, or heroin.
yeah.
Opium,
Wait,
opium.
how? That's how do you how do you do that? I want to know well, hey, we can create this delicious food and something that will kill you.
I wonder if it was like I wonder if it was one of the Reese's moment. There was a guy with a bagel and then like a guy with like a bag of poppy seeds.
Oh crap! My bagel dropped in my heroin. Oh, this is
And he's
pretty
like, "Your
good.
heroin got into my bagel." He's like,
I wanted. Ah, God, what the hell? And I can't say for heroin, but I know poppy seed bagels are pretty damn good. As are poppy seed muffins. I've had those
yeah,
too.
exactly. But just don't make sure that your place of work doesn't do a random drug test.
Well, you have to eat I think you have to eat like a crazy amount of those, like for that to
Yeah, I
even
know. Yeah, like a huge bag full, like a giant, like maybe like 10-pound bag full of poppy seeds to even like get it to like spike even on the necessary amount for it to even look like you
yeah.
do heroin.
But but I think the idea, and I don't know if this was something that they knew back. They must have known this back then too. But the idea of poppies being used, and obviously they're not going to show them shooting up heroin, but the fact that these poppy flowers, made them kind of the similar symptoms to heroin. It's like, oh, I'm very tired, I'm
Right? Yeah,
logy.
it's I don't know. I thought that it might have been like a shot at like that line from Lenin or Marx where it's like religion is the opium of the masses.
Maybe that's what they were going for too. Where it's like kind of because they're all like thinking of like the wizard as this kind of godly figure,
Mm-hmm.
and that he's going to rescue them from their ailments.
Mm-hmm.
And then but and as we know, it's kind of a the wizard is kind of a farce, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it is kind of their opium that kind of is the what keeps them soothed and relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a possibility that that's kind of what they were going for in that too. We just don't know.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know if that was something that was in the original story that when Frank Baum wrote it. I'd have to look that up. Um, but if it wasn't, that's very interesting that they threw that in there.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right.
Any other final thoughts, Andy, about the movie?
No, that was all I had.
Yeah, same here. Well, what about your rating?
All right. Rating. I give it a 4.
Give it a 4.
4.
Any particular reason why for the 4?
4.5. Well, now that I'm watching it as an adult, there's uh, there's like the kind of the fantasy element, kind of where it kind of felt like a kids movie, kind
Yeah,
of poke through, and I was like, and it's a stupid reason to get dinged, but it's like, I it's not like I'd be popping this in to watch, just because I want to watch this, but eventually when I have kids, of course, I'll play this movie for them, but it's like it's not one of those movies where I'd watch it just for myself.
true. Okay. Well, like I said, for me, it has the musical score, and obviously it won for that too. So I mean, that's there. The set design is beautiful. The costume design is fantastic.
Oh, gorgeous!
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, the story is kind of, yeah, like I said, it's very fantastical. And especially because I don't think that they were fully intending on going after what Frank Baum was after. So there's not like that real element to that. So I'd have to give it. I might give it like a 3.5 just because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think a lot, like I said, all those reasons give it that rating. But yeah, obviously, like compared to the stories of Gone with the Wind and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely pales in comparison compared to those films.
Mm.
Like I see why Wizard of Oz did not win Best Picture, um,
Right.
compared to those two. Um, and yeah, like I said, it's a great all-time movie that should be watched by all. It's not a movie that I would revisit very often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not like, oh man, like I'm really like I gotta watch some Wizard of Oz. It's
Right.
that time of the year. It's time for Wizard of Oz. Like no, it's that's this is probably the first time I've seen it in maybe like 15 years. Um, and I'm glad I watched it. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like, it's like I'm good for a while. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I won't have. I won't have to watch this movie, in the next like couple of weeks or something. It's as
right,
great as it is. Yeah, it's like
like I said,
it doesn't merit, at least to me, it doesn't merit an immediate rewatch.
right. Like I said, the acting's great. The scenery is great. The costume design is great. The music's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. Yeah, it's just but the story is kind of it's lacking. It's not. But it's a musical. It's supposed to. It's not the point of the film.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, that was our review for Wizard of Oz. Robert gives it a 3.5. I give it a 4. Definitely a movie you should watch. Um, at least once, and maybe 1,000 times more after you have some kids. Um, and I think that'll do it for our show for tonight. I thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday, sometimes live at around 8 o'clock. Don't forget to check out the library of other shows, the Circle of Jerks main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Rob's gaming playthrough show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts: Twitter at PodcastCOJ and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. That's where we're throw up some musings for the week, or some behind the scenes sort of things, uh, and also announcements for new episodes and things like that. Um, And with all that said, we thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to leave us a comment on this video. Let us know, what if you watched Wizard of Oz, let us know what your thoughts are. And also for like the vaccine stuff too. I'm kind of interested to hear what other people have to say. Good or for or against. Um, I would love to hear other opinions on the
Yeah,
matter.
definitely.
So yeah, put them down there. All right. With all that said, we'll see you next time. And don't do anything I wouldn't.